welcome, Dr. Tamara Stevenson.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to have you.
I am beyond excited.
No, because you and I, every time we talk, every time we meet, it's hours and hours of conversation.
Yeah.
And I joke. Well, actually, you joke that I'm basically the yin to your yang.
Yes.
Because our style of communication.
Yes.
And so we balance each other out.
Completely. In the best ways for the highest good, right?
Yeah.
For the good of the world.
That's right. That's right. So your background, Dr. Tamara Stevenson, is a higher education leader, communicator, and organizational culture strategist based in Salt Lake City, Utah. You currently serve as Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion and Chief Diversity Officer at Westminster University. And since joining Westminster, I didn't know this, but you made history as the first African-American faculty member in its communication program to earn multi-year contracts and advance to associate professor.
I have associate professor rank.
Okay. Because I saw that in your bio too, and I was just like, well, let me add that in there because that's really, I didn't know that.
Thank you.
With a background in organizational communication and leadership, you help institutions align their values with their practices, especially when it comes to culture, policy, and belonging. You're a Detroit native and first-generation college graduate. You bring experience from both corporate and academic spaces, and you're passionate about creating structures that work better for more people. You're also a proud American Council of Education Fellow.
That's just starting.
That just started?
It just started. Well, it's still launching, right? I'm going to be somewhere else.
I saw the announcement.
Yeah.
Yep. And you're a board member for several boards. Yeah.
A few. One or two national boards. At least one.
Yeah. Yeah. And apologetic champion for student access and systemic change. And when you're not working, you value movement and restoration. You lift weights. You walk and listen to a good podcast. You enjoy spa day. You recently completed your first beginner swimming course and continue to rebuild your relationship with fitness. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's a whole story too. But life changer, game changer. The pool is healing.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm a little bit safer now. Because before I would just think I would just drown.
Yeah.
Now I know how not to drown.
Do you feel like you could swim?
I haven't gotten quite to swimming yet, but I know
what to swim. So
I know what to do if I get pushed in the water.
Okay.
Yeah, there's that. That's a start.
Good. This is a good survival. And then you also love to travel, curate the perfect playlist, and find joy in the everyday.
Yeah.
So I invited you here to talk to us about communication and the power of communication and how to speak truth to power, how to use communication through conflict, through change, and how to make change. And you're the right person for this because this is your forte. And I love how, I've seen you over the years. We've sat in boardrooms, we've sat in
classrooms,
corporate spaces, classrooms. And you are always a person to be like, okay, like let's get to the real thing.
Yes.
Because Utah, we do a lot of niceties.
Yes.
We placate a lot.
Yes.
But then you come in and you're like,
enough.
Stop.
Enough.
Here's what needs to be addressed.
Yes.
Here's what's happening.
Yes.
Here's what you're trying to say.
Yes.
Here's the BS that you're trying to say.
Yes.
And you kind of just bring it all out. And
Yeah.
I just see you do it in such direct but loving ways. And so I'm curious how does this happen? Where did your voice come from? What shaped your voice? Yeah. And then how would you describe your communication style?
Yeah, the voice. I'm the eldest child and the only girl in my immediate family, so I have a younger brother. So I can't really explain it other than, as reflecting on these, on our initial questions, and I already feel like we're at the kitchen table. So who knows where this is going to go, but I'm ready for the ride. Yeah. Mom and dad, Dad said, you can, or didn't even necessarily say, he just created the environment for me to be whatever I wanted to be. And then mom was like, you can be what you want to be. You just have to look good doing it. So my mom was a hairdresser. She retired from being a hairdresser. And my dad was, working class, a clerk at a steel mill. But loved photography. So we had a computer in our home in the 80s. I'm giving away my age. So they just created this environment to be inquisitive, and I think that worked for good, and I think in other times it kind of worked for not good because of that voice, that mouth that sometimes might have been a little bit reckless. And so I'm looking around the home, or I'm looking around, like, what's going on here? And then when you're a child, you don't really have the vocabulary to catch up with your observation. And so a lot of times, it's just really trying to understand what's going on.
Yeah.
And I would ask it in that childlike voice with that childlike vocabulary at the time. And thankfully, my dad never said, stop asking questions. He would just say, I don't know. And then, why don't you know, Daddy? Because I don't know. Okay. And then I'd go play with my dolls or something, right?
Yeah.
But it was always this environment of the permission to be curious, the permission to be inquisitive. I read a lot. I was that child under the blanket at night when I'm supposed to be asleep. I had a flashlight and I was reading all kinds of books. So I think just exposure to just be inquisitive and to read and learn and hear about and read about different stories and different experiences. And I was just curious about that.
Yeah.
And then I probably would tag in before we started. We talked about my dream of being a broadcast journalist. So growing up in Detroit and seeing these amazing, beautiful Black women reading the news on television. So they were pretty and smart, and they knew stuff before everybody else did. So I was like, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's the start of where the voice came from.
Okay. And I love that your upbringing never quieted your voice, never said
it tried after a while, right?
Okay, yeah.
Because after a while, stay in a child's place.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, because when you're asking too many questions or you're piping up too much.
Yeah. Or when it might be okay at home,
Right,
but then when you
but
go
then-
out,
Yeah.
what's that lady? Why does that lady look like that? Why is that, and you're just asking out
You're
of
curious,
curiosity.
yeah.
Oh, that's not polite to say, or shut up. And they didn't probably say shut up. They probably said be quiet.
Yeah.
And then you go to school,
Yeah.
or then
Yeah.
if you went to church. And so all of these different social institutions start to shape how you're supposed to behave.
Yeah.
What the culture says that a child, a girl, is supposed to be and do. And then you add being a Black girl into that. And it just begins to really erode that childlike wonder. And I won't say it completely squashed it, right? I think one thing I love about myself is I still do have some sort of childlike wonder. I do in the best ways, and sometimes it's like you're grown up, you're supposed to be able to deal with it better, and sometimes it's just still like, wow, there should still be some things that amaze us even as adults.
Yes,
and so
absolutely.
it didn't squash it. Those social institutions didn't squash that curiosity completely, but sometimes it was like fighting the air to survive, to be able to live and express. And so I think that's probably what also drew me to journalism and communication, this idea of seeing examples of stories being told. And that's even before we get to the authenticity of the stories, which stories aren't being told.
Right.
Or if they're told in ways that are not respectful. Or
Which
maybe
we're seeing a lot of.
we're seeing a lot of now more than ever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. Has your voice changed since moving to Utah?
Probably not. No.
Yeah.
I don't think so. Clearly I think maturity has helped me be able to navigate spaces, but deep down in that core being or motivation is still there. It still burns bright.
Okay.
And I think a large part of that is, again, having that that solid identity formation. In all of the ways that my identity is across identity markers, across social constructions. You had Dr. William Smith on recently, who is a mentor of mine. And he talked about when you grow up in a predominantly black city where you see so much more representation and good and bad, but it sort of it solidifies who you are. So that when you go into these different spaces and you might see or hear something that's different than what you know of yourself and your culture, for me, it's not difficult to say, nope,
That's not it.
that's
Yeah.
not it.
Yeah.
And that's not acceptable.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's been interesting when that reaction has happened. And it's almost like, you said the quiet thing out loud. I sure am. I sure did. And I sure will. Because first of all, it's about using communication to identify, express, and make meaning for me first.
Yeah. 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 And you have to know you first.
You got to know you first. And we're continuously evolving and hopefully improving, but it still means having a sense of self, strong sense of self. And I think I was able to get that growing up. So then when I have gone into these different spaces and relocated to different cities, and Utah has been the second longest place I've lived.
Where was it before?
Well, Detroit, first home.
Okay.
I lived in Ohio for a year.
Oh, okay.
And then relocated here to Utah. And so definitely, it's a different world.
Yeah.
13 years later.
But I love that you're very consistent in the way that you've communicated. You may have refined it in different ways, but that you're still very solid in who you are.
Absolutely.
You're very grounded. And so, because we live in a society, and I would say even Utah specific, where people just want to peg you quickly. They want to find out who you are, and then they want to put you in a box, and they want to leave you there. And so for you to come and be like, that's not me. That's not who I am. I know exactly who I am.
Yes.
In an environment that we all kind of just allow for people to just put us in boxes is refreshing because, and that's why I was so drawn to you, because you have it in you to just say the thing and to let people know, no, that's not how I move. And that's not, and you're very like, the way you say it too, it gets people to think about themselves in a very inviting way. You're not trying to be fragile with people, but you're also not trying to be like cutthroat.
Right.
That's not how I see you communicate.
It's definitely not from a place of destruction. It's definitely from a place of awakening, awareness raising, right? How would sometimes, and if I want to be a little snarky about it, which I know I can.
I've seen it.
Right?
I've seen it.
It's come out. It's like, how would you know if I didn't tell you? Because right now, apparently, I am your only source. I'm your only resource of awareness, so that you can be a part of this conversation in a productive way. Lived experience meets learned expertise. I think that would describe some of the things you talked about when you mentioned about humans going through the process of categorization, right? That's safety. First and foremost, that comes from a place of safety. And I love when I've read it explained that, cave people who lived in caves.
Way back when.
Way back when.
Yeah.
They had to determine what was safe and what was not.
Yeah.
And so that still apparently exists within us. There's, been books written, and some of that is in the foundation of, in the recent time, how bias works. Right. Biases are come from our need to identify what's safe. Right. Now, clearly, culture informs that as well, because our culture teaches us who is and is not safe. Yeah. And usually who's considered safer is closer to who looks like us. So if you encounter someone who doesn't look like you, even on the face, even visually, they might be deemed unsafe.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that can begin to trigger a lot of decision making, particularly if you are in positions of power, about who gets access to resources or not. So now that I understand, some of those reactions are you trying to figure out what's safe.
Yeah.
There's that. But then let's unpack that more. and understand where your information may be a bit skewed.
Yeah.
And then how can we come to a place of understanding
Yeah.
to be able to go forward?
How do you do that? Because I'm thinking about the rooms that you're in, and I'm thinking about how do you speak with conviction and truth for standing up for something that you believe is the truth, and then someone comes in with their own biases, their own ideologies around it. How do you then infiltrate, or how do you continue telling the truth when someone's questioning it or challenging it, or and I've seen this happen in real life with you.
Yeah.
But how do you work through that?
Yeah. Well, hopefully people aren't meeting just to be meeting, right? Because then it's just a social hour, right?
Yeah,
Usually in professional workplaces, we're meeting for a purpose. Hopefully.
That's right. Yeah, there's an agenda.
There's agenda. There's a purpose. There's a function. There's an outcome. And yes, I love the meme. This could have been an email. Because sometimes it could have been.
Could have been a phone call.
Could have been a phone call. But so ideally coming into the room with there's an agenda, there's an outcome that we're seeking, they're brainstorming, whatever we're there to do.
Yeah.
So hopefully we've agreed upon what needs to be done, what needs to be accomplished, and if we're truly committed to the process, then we're going to hopefully participate in the conversation, be curious, be aware of what we're there to do, and hopefully that happens with a good facilitator. And I think sometimes when that's not there, that also kind of contributes to the chaos.
Yeah.
And a good facilitator can navigate that conversation. I think there are some spaces that do really well with community standards. Here's how we're going to talk and respect each other. That's great. And then what we talked about earlier, or maybe before we got started, there's a point where it just seems like we're doing a lot of surface level airplane, helicopter,
hovering over
a topic instead of landing.
Yeah.
to get to why we're really hearing what needs to be done and what might be some barriers,
right?
Interpersonal, professional, cultural, social, economic, that is hindering or slowing down what we're there to do. And so I don't start at 10, even though people believe that. I don't start at 10, right? I'm listening, I'm observing, I'm watching, I'm taking notes. I'm processing my own. I'm doing some of my own self-check and self-reflection to see, okay, how might I approach this? How might I do this?
Yeah.
And I'm also thinking about the people who aren't at the table.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so if I continue to hear that decisions are being made for people who aren't at the table, that certainly increases the urgency.
Yeah.
To address what's happening, to name that. And I think that's what I try to do.
Yeah. Then how do you, because I'm thinking about those who push back on you. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about DEIB.
Okay, yeah.
Because this is your work.
Yeah.
And you've been doing this for so long. You've been studying it. You know this work very well.
Likewise.
And it's been under attack, and you're in a higher educational institution. And you're hearing so many things about DEI and how it's, it was so fragile, right? Because it just kind of fell apart. But also, the opposing party of it has really pushed hard on it.
Masterfully, let me say.
That's right.
It's been masterful. It's been a masterful hijacking, co-optation of the acronym, of the meaning, of the work, of the rhetoric. Masterful. Again, communication major here, journalism major here. It was swift in the sense that it didn't take very long to dismantle or override the message, right? And a big reason for that overshadowing was coherence. Coherence with those messengers. Yep. They had a playbook and they stuck to it.
Yep.
Masterful.
Yeah.
It also didn't help that you had some well-meaning and so not so well-meaning so-called practitioners,
Right.
who sought to make good difference, and in other instances just sought to take advantage
Yeah.
of opportunities in this moment. Also, some structuring, organizational structuring, also brought some vulnerabilities. Right. At the end of the day, my goal around diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging was about embedding the work.
Yeah.
You're supposed to work myself out of a job,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't always have a job because human beings are human.
Right.
Right. And human beings are entering and leaving institutions every day.
Yeah.
And so for an organization to have a set of values, principles embedded in equity, right, you need to remind your customers, clients, students, employees of what your organizational mission, vision, and values are.
Yeah.
And so that's why we should always have jobs, because we're continuing. It's about continuous improvement as well. Yeah. Reminding those who engage in organizations, here's who we are, here's what we do, here's how we do it. And even if we miss it, there should be space to correct. And DEIB did not get that opportunity. It was always framed as a one and done.
Yeah.
And if you miss it, oh, well, see, it didn't work. Well, we wouldn't say that about technology.
No.
And
there's been several trial and errors on that too.
Yeah.
So tell me this: do you see that? What are the if you were to poke holes at the moment, if you were to go back and re-examine through your lens, if you were to poke holes on DEI, the industry, so let's talk about how it was in higher education, and then how then it infiltrated into the corporate space.
Sure.
Tell me your critique on it.
So I mean, you got to go back to the beginning, right? The civil rights movement and the landmark civil rights legislation. That really was DEI, right? It was through policy, through law, through creating, expanding deserved access. So when I just say deserved, right? Citizens, participants in America were supposed to have access to this, and there were groups who did not have fair, equal access. And so this is what it's always been about, is access, and has not been about giving, how do I say this? It wasn't about giving someone else more.
Yeah, it wasn't about redistribution of power,
it was not about
power
that
over someone.
Right,
yeah,
right. And so then bring that into higher ed, which again is an amazing evolution of expansion of students from different racial, ethnic groups. For example, I'll hang there for a little bit, because even Harvard, 1636, first institution in the U.S., designed to train white male, presumably heterosexual, wealthy boys for ministry. So the people in this room would not have gotten to Harvard, would not have gotten to Harvard in 1636, right? But then through changes of heart, I guess that's where it starts or where it ends, to expand access in women, white women. Harvard didn't say, come on in. They were like, you can have your own schools. So we have women's colleges. Oh, you mean those formerly enslaved Africans and formerly enslaved blacks? They should probably go to school too, but they give them their own schools, HBCUs.
Yeah.
And then that expansion. So inclusion by exclusion is where it started, and then you get to the 60s, right?
Yeah.
Let's open up historically white schools to everyone. Again, over time, recognizing the differing needs of varieties of students and how to respond to students to level access. This is after you even get accepted or you enroll, right? What's happening in the classroom? What's happening in co-curricular opportunities? What makes an environment fruitful for learning and engagement, right? We know when students have that sense of belonging, we weren't even using that word back then, but we knew that's what it took for students to stay engaged and to complete.
So that was the outcome.
That was the ultimate outcome, right?
Yeah.
And then again, I think we saw the evolution of terms to match the practice. So it started with minority affairs, then it grew into diversity, then you added inclusion, then you got to equity, and then there's been some tipping points in between. But the multiculturalism, 2020. We just got to put a stake in the ground for our conversation today. 2020. COVID. Certainly shifting how instructional delivery was going to happen, because we couldn't be in classrooms anymore in person. So there was that. You certainly saw an increase or a look at how, for example, we don't talk enough about students with disabilities and the various needs that come with that, technological needs even with that. So now everybody has got to have a screen and a computer and all of that. So there's that start. And by summer 2020, George Floyd, you had not only higher ed institutions, but corporations wanting to be responsive, or I won't say wanting to be responsive, I might say saw an opportunity to engage a consumer base in some particular ways. Many schools had already had diversity, equity, and inclusion offices, including my own, thankfully. Right, we weren't part of a trend, right, but they saw the need and was able to, actually in response to student activism, the office was created. So to your question about how we got here and how we've seen this retrenchment, that's a clear sign of the lack of agreement on what we actually think diversity, equity, and inclusion is.
As a collective.
That are
either practicing it or talking about it.
What are the policies?
Right.
Is it just diversifying your ads in on TV and media, or do you have a employee resource groups? Do you have procedures in place to handle interpersonal and professional conflicts? How do you recruit for employment? So all those things. So when this current backlash of rollbacks, it was kind of my question would be, what exactly are we talking about there? So there's again that lack of coherence. That we talked about earlier.
And while the other side were pretty
solid and consistent and strong, and add on having people in high places who can create executive orders and dismantle offices that have been standing for decades, that leveled access, that expanded access. And so what I have said, and I say this in my bones, this is what we trained for. This is the time to really show who's really the smart, competent, capable practitioner, or were you just the smoke and mirrors, window dressing, and now you don't know how to advise your clients. You don't know what to tell them,
right? Other
than telling them to move on, and that's going to hurt them in the long run economically.
Right. Because there's going to be lawsuits. There's going to be all sorts of stuff that's going to come up.
Well, people go where they are seen and appreciated.
Yeah, that's true.
And if they have to compromise a bit, they won't like it.
No.
They won't appreciate it, and that's not sustainable.
No, it's not.
So it's not good business.
No.
Just like it's not good pedagogy.
No.
When you misgender somebody, a student.
Yeah.
And we can go down that pathway, we connect those dots about how that contributes to disenfranchisement and attrition.
Yeah.
Schools need students.
Yep.
And if you're not respecting and honoring who they are, they're not going to stay. They're going to go where they're appreciated.
A basic rights, human level.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm with the DEI and the evolution of DEI, and thank you so much for laying that out. Actually, you educated me a bit on that too. What do you think it takes for us to get on the same page, to have some congruency, and what needs to be communicated for us to kind of come together in the same way? Like Project 2020, what is it, 2025?
2025.
I don't know what year it is. I don't even, the project itself is
It's happening.
It's happening, right? We're seeing the big, beautiful bill. We're seeing everything come into fruition. It wasn't just something on a piece of paper.
Not at all.
What happened? Where on the other side? Where was our project 2025? Or where was our project? Where are we in the process of creating this together? And what does it take for us to get there? Well, okay.
Yeah.
Also,
what
do you believe is becoming such a, why is it so hard for us?
That's probably the question.
Okay.
That's the question of the moment. I wonder if there's just a lack of there's no scarcity mindset. There's a scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
I think that's part of it. I think that there's been not necessarily a failure, but not even an effort to have a multi-faceted coalition, across industries, across sectors, to begin even having conversations, which is why I think higher ed can really be the birthplace or the thing, for lack of a better word, to begin to maybe be that source, that beginning source spot to start thinking about coalescing, to start thinking about messaging, to start thinking about how all of this is connected. Higher ed builds America. That's the American Council of Education's motto. Whether you went to whether you went to college or not, somebody that you work for or that you visit has had some post-secondary schooling to train them to do what they do.
Yeah.
So that, I think higher ed could be that space to begin building that. But what's happening now with the dismantling of all of the tools and mechanisms for higher ed to do what it does is this is what makes this point in time quite critical, right? Even Harvard, right, is facing significant scrutiny in how they do what they do. And so I think should Harvard fall, it would really just be a critical downfall in what higher ed could look like. International students, things that are happening with international students is just appalling and harmful in how higher ed operates, right? It's supposed to be a place of learning. That's why I love it so much.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be a place for people to share ideas and think through and be exposed to ideas and perspectives that they might not have been exposed to, not to harm, but to learn from each other, so that when we do go out into this global society, we at least know enough of ourselves and be willing to learn from others.
Yeah. Have you seen this in higher education before, this level of just sort of folding in?
No, not at all.
Right? I haven't seen it either. I mean, I haven't been in the higher education space as long as you have, but just sort of so this is unprecedented.
This is completely unprecedented, and again, masterfully done.
Yeah.
And I don't say that lightly, right? This has been so strategic.
Yeah.
It's been building for a while. I think maybe one critique of higher ed is maybe we thought higher ed was impenetrable. It would always be around. We'll always have academic freedom, and we have quickly learned that is not the case, and that there is a sense of lawlessness right now that is guiding so much of what's happening to higher ed right now.
What do you think needs to happen then for us to, you mentioned that higher education can be the platform for us to coalesce. What do we need to be doing? So, and you have access to other, diversity, equity, inclusion practitioners across the country. What needs to happen for everyone to sort of get on the page, as you said, the how they masterfully, swiftly dismantled DEI? what do we need to be doing from your perspective?
Well, the practitioners, we aren't the leaders. We aren't the presidents or the chancellors. And so we're hopefully there to be solid advisors to these leaders. And a few months back, there was a letter signed by several leaders and organizations, I think through the not AAC&U, I believe it was. I'm not going to remember what the acronym stands for, but it's a significant higher ed organization. And there's one president in Utah who signed that letter, happened to be Westminster's president. But that's one example of saying, higher ed deserves to be preserved for what it is in terms of its role and function as a place for democratic practice, for learning, for knowledge building, knowledge creation. We have yet to see the impact of the research that has to end because the dollars are no longer there, from medical research to economic research, right? Research that certainly changed the lives of millions of people with medical breakthroughs. And you kind of got to wonder, why go so far, right? So it wasn't as if just higher ed was indoctrinating people, which was part of the message, right?
Right.
There was so many pivotal things happening in classrooms and research labs at many institutions, and particularly and to switch to a different higher ed sector, the community college. That was the focus of my dissertation research. The role of the community college was to expand access to higher education for the masses. It was, for some, it was either the community college or no college at all.
Yeah.
And so our community colleges deserve so much more attention, respect, and protection, so that those who have a desire to go to college and even go past the community college will have the opportunity to go. But with all of the changes that have been happening, even with financial aid, all of that is in jeopardy for so many students and families. We started off talking about communication. We're still talking about communication, because these messages that have been overtaking our society about higher ed and how it's unworthy, it's indoctrinating, it is doing all of these things is really masterful and harmful. And higher ed as a whole needs to have its own campaign to say, here's how we contribute to the betterment of our world and our society. We need to do that more.
Yeah. I remember just with HB 261, I remember watching the local legislation, and people brought in research and data.
They did.
But that was not even considered.
No.
It wasn't even considered. Your word, co-opted, even later, just we're going to do our own research around this.
Yeah. How does that happen?
How does that happen? Where could have the communication been stronger if it needed to, or are we really up against something else that we're just not sure of?
Well, so Utah is a really fascinating place around legislation, right? And I mean, we're what, not even 10 minutes from the state capitol.
Yeah.
We have a citizen. What's the word? Citizen. Oh gosh, I can't remember the word, but the fact that our legislators meet for the first 3 months of the year to do the work of the legislature.
Oh yeah.
Citizen something. I will remember it.
Yeah.
I will remember it later. And that we have access to go. I visited. I would have never done that in my home state because, first of all, I live too far. I live too far from the Capitol. But that you can access it virtually now and be a part of those conversations. So that is amazing. The fact that even the process of calling or contacting your legislator, and what I think we heard more than once during some of those conversations, like, well, I heard from this citizen, and who has time and opportunity to call their legislator or email their legislator, right? It's those who have access and opportunity to do that. If you're working double shifts, if you have you're not engaged because you're trying to survive, you're trying to
Yeah.
get through the day.
Yeah.
And so that was usually the data that was used to inform the decisions that were made. So I don't know if the evidence that was presented would have made a difference, right?
Yeah.
And I think we were a little bit slow
Yeah.
on to respond to some
yeah.
of those questions
Yeah.
and that were being asked early on.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think we saw this coming a little bit, right?
We did.
And so and Utah is just a microcosm. There was a national
Exactly.
conversation
Yes.
before all of this even
Right.
unfolded.
Yes.
Where there was a threat to the industry itself. And so I think you're right that we were a bit slow and then reactive, and then
Right.
now we're deflated.
Yes. Yeah. Well,
Is that the right word? I don't know.
yeah, well, no. I just when I say slow, when you say slow, I don't even know if it was slow. It was. I think we were just. It's not going to happen that way. They need us.
Disbelief, maybe.
Disbelief,
Yeah.
delusion. I think some hope.
Yeah.
That maybe it won't happen the way it would. And I know in some rooms I was saying, wake up, wake up, wake
Yeah.
up, wake up, wake up. Prepare yourself.
Yeah.
And it just, you weren't ready to hear that.
What do you do when you say that? When you're like, hey,
Snap
wake up.
out of it, wake
Yeah.
up. Snap out.
what happens? How do you then pick and choose your battles?
Ooh, well, one, try not to do it alone, right? You need allies, accomplices, and co-conspirators and activists, right? You gotta scan the landscape. You gotta know who's in your corner and who's not. It helps to have trustworthy. Now, let me say it differently. I was going to say trustworthy leadership. A way I want to say it is leadership who trusts you.
That's right. That's right.
So in good times when you've said this is the way to go, and they may not believe you, but they take a chance and you're right, you're proven. That's what I think is a significant part of how I've been able to navigate, because I've been more right than not.
Oh, I believe it. I believe it.
And sometimes I go, I don't know. I don't always know.
Yeah.
But I'm
Yes.
saying,
Yeah.
I've that's why I love Olivia Pope and Scandal. Like, if that was the job,
You did tell me this. Yeah.
yes, that would be my job, because I just rewatched the series, so now I got new notes. But I saw how she would strategize, and I know it's fictional, but it's not in my world. It's a master class. But I think that I've been willing to stand 10 toes down, as they say, where I've had to say to my president, I think this is what you should do. I think this is the way this is going. And 9 times out of 10, she's like, all right, we'll try it. And then there have been those few times where she's like, I'm going to go in a different direction. Okay. So I think that helps. And I think I've done that through, I try to study, try to read, I try to, stay current on what's happening, talk to people, look around, where is the action? And then where else is the action, right? Because there's the action you see, and then there's the action behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And who knows what's going on there? Let me find out who it is and what's happening. So I think that's been a part of where I can speak up, right? Because I'm not just speaking up in the moment, meaning I'm not just on the handle, but I've actually read some things. I've actually talked to people. I've actually listened. I've actually reflected.
You built rapport.
Yeah.
You're very well connected. So it's not like you're just reacting to things.
No.
I think that's the key. That is a difference. There is a very calm and steadiness about you, because you're very, just like you said earlier, you're very, your identity. You're very confident in your identity, but you're very also you're still in your own convictions.
Yes, absolutely.
And they don't just come from happenstance because
Right.
so and so said something, or it's a time of the season,
Yes,
or whatever it is. Like
absolutely.
you've done your research and you're very still in that. And I think that's such a big lesson, especially as you were talking about coalescing. I feel like we need to be very still in our identity, and also very much in our convictions of what this is, what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, there's the personal identity. There's the professional identity, right? There's the integrity of the field. Integrity is probably my number one core value. Integrity personally, integrity professionally. So just sidebar story, whenever I'm on a search committee and, yes, the chief diversity officer is on this committee, I say, don't give me the diversity question. Give it to somebody else. Yeah. Someone that doesn't look like me. They won't see it coming from them. But what it demonstrates is that this entire search committee or this entire institution
is well informed, and committed at least.
Yeah. I always say, give me a different question, or I'll ask a different question, right? Because they'll expect it coming from me. No, this is across. This is throughout. This is embedded in the institution.
So what about those practitioners that are maybe giving up?
Yes. Yeah.
The ones that are very burnt out. What would you tell them?
I'd say, first of all, completely valid.
Yeah.
Take care of yourself. Work should be fulfilling. Work should be should give you a sense of accomplishment. It should not be draining. Yes, there will be days it'll be challenging, but it shouldn't be hard, and it shouldn't be hard every day.
Yeah.
I would say that it's so funny. I'm just thinking of a couple of colleagues who just wanted to hold on to the title.
Yeah.
And I would say, don't worry about the title. You bring the lens into the work, whatever your title is.
Yeah.
Don't worry about the title at all. So even I don't know if we'll have time to talk about the whole nomenclature evolution, but that's pretty much that, right? Yeah. So I personally am ready to shed the DEI acronym. It's been sullied, as one of my colleagues said, but more so, it's evolved, like we talked about earlier. The titling, the nomenclature evolved as the work evolved, such as now. Now, this is the first time when we were forced to change. Those other times we were able to grow and contribute to those name changes. Now we're kind of in a corner to have to do that, but it's okay. We can reimagine. So let's do that. So I would say, don't worry about the title. If the lens is in you for real, then let it function in whatever title, whatever role you in. If you're really true to this, as they say, they can't take it from you.
That's right. I love that. Yeah. This is interesting too, because DEI, the work is so personal.
Yes.
And it's just so I can understand the title being so personal, but what you're suggesting is that it is personal.
Yes, it is.
A title is not going to be able to encapsulate how personal this work is.
Right.
So let go of the title.
Let it go.
Yeah.
Evolve.
Yeah.
Reimagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what do you feel like, because within us, just us practitioners.
Yes.
What do you believe are some of the barriers for us to connect? You had mentioned those who are doing the work that are kind of like, they're not really, they don't even know what they're doing. So maybe we don't include them.
But it is bewildering, right? I have been at tables, and I'm sure you have too, where you wonder, how are we both at the same table? How do we work at the same organization? And more than once, we have been at the table, and this has not been as productive as it could. We've both been at tables like that. So
yes, we have. We both look at each other like, huh.
So your question, I'm sorry.
Well, yeah. So what I'm trying to say is, how do we, for those of us who have done the work for a really long time and across different areas, how do we work together? Because I do think even within us, there's differences of how we approach DEI or whatever we want to call it, how we approach equity work. we don't tend to stay in, we dabble everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we don't stay in our own lanes where our expertise lie.
Yeah.
How can we what does coalescing look like within even just us as practitioners?
So, maybe it's too much to dream to think that we will all agree on every single thing all the time. And what comes to mind is I was on a webinar, I call it that, and the conversation was going on. I forget the particular line of questioning, but one of the attendees says something like, "We're supposed to call people in," and I immediately was like, "No." Well, to me, that sounded like almost acquiescing to one's unwillingness to engage
And just to be uncomfortable.
Right?
Yeah.
So we have to, we're supposed to call people in, and I want to certainly name the work of Loretta Ross, who's done that work phenomenally.
Yeah.
And so I had to, after the webinar, I was like, let me think about this. Calling people in, meeting people where they're, all of that, but we can certainly call out structures that perpetuate inequity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Period. And so clearly we're not going to agree on that, because some of us approach the work from the people side. Some of us approach the work from the system side or structural side or cultural side. Now, yes, it all includes human beings. It includes people. Yeah. But I think for me, when I'm thinking about it through that lens, I'm thinking about the most vulnerable among us. The students, the most vulnerable students, the most vulnerable employees, the lowest paid employees, the gender, racial pay gap employees. I'm thinking about the most vulnerable among us. And so, yes, when the structure persistently and consistently through data shows that, that's calling out the structure.
Yeah.
And so I'm not calling someone out of their name or their character, but maybe that discomfort is from recognizing how you benefit from the way the current structure is operating.
That's right.
So there we go. So we might not always agree on that.
Yeah.
And so how do you kind of name that in that moment, and how to diffuse some of that tension? That's a good question that I think I'm still continuing to practice. I always like to make reference to sources, because in a way, when we can put the object in front of us instead of each other, we can have a shared resource to review that talks about that. Sometimes that's helpful. Maybe it's a follow-up conversation. Maybe it's a sidebar kitchen table conversation. Yeah. Ultimately, I think it's agreeing on the goal. If it's the goal of the organization, the goal of the project, how does that stand, and how do we continue to move forward in achieving that goal? But doing the messy work, doing the messy with that's progress too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a one and done. It's supposed to be about continuous improvement.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, because I've had I look up to so many practitioners that are in the field, and we have some amazing, very gifted, you yourself. Like, we have some amazing people in this space that can lead us. But then we have ones that are feeling really discouraged, or ones that feel like there isn't much that we can do. We just kind of let it play out. And then there's folks that are really optimistic, but then don't entirely know what direction to go. So we're all over the map. And I just really love the word even coalesce, just bringing this together, because what you mentioned earlier, they masterfully, strategically put one swift move, dismantled something that then had an echo effect. Mm-hmm. We could do the same. We have. I mean, the level of hit that we took was the level of which we succeeded, right? Yeah. They're only going to push hard because we pushed hard.
Exactly.
So we've gotten this far. Mm-hmm. How do we bring us all together? So I really appreciate the messaging there with the coalescing, and that's the other thing, the messaging.
Right.
What is the messaging even right now?
So in the spaces that I've been in, from conferences that I've attended, board meetings that I've attended, my own readings, my own reflections. One of the things I heard was Underground Railroad was the example. Go underground. And I'm not saying that to say that it's secret or private, right? Because there was even a news article that talked about some DEI practitioners being videotaped secretly that were talking about DEI things at institutions. It was in Inside Higher Ed recently, and those individuals were reprimanded or fired in some instances. So I don't mean secret or private or break laws. I would never advise an organization to not remain in compliance.
Right.
And that's part of the messaging too, just this blanket statement that all DEI is illegal. Not true at all, right?
Yeah.
And so part of the work is disentangling the truth from the lie.
Yeah.
Disentangling the truth from the misinformation and disinformation. That's the work too. We've got to get away from this big, beautiful, sexy DEI programming.
Yeah. Yeah.
And get to the structural, infrastructural work that creates and facilitates access and opportunity, period. We've got to get away from, we got this big speaker in, or, we did this major ad campaign, or we have this, we do this on our campus. We have, Pride Week, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
But that's not
there's some posturing in it.
Yeah,
too.
exactly. That it can be framed that way.
Yeah.
And but that's not what keeps students in classrooms.
Right.
That's not what keeps faculty in classrooms. That's not what keeps staff in offices. That's not what attracts students to campus. We're talking about higher ed. It's not going to keep people in your stores, right? If they're continuing to be mistreated or disrespected in their humanity for that. So to those that might be feeling discouraged, you can still do the work. One, don't worry about the title. Yeah. Two, I almost want to say get in where you fit in. Get in where you can fit in, meaning whatever role you in, you can still bring that lens in creative and innovative ways. And that's the new frame. That's always been the work, but we haven't been using the language of innovation, talent, creativity, productivity. That's what it's always resulted in. We've got to, I think part of the messaging is we've got to close that gap between, we're just being nice to people and we're doing this window dressing. No, this has a very direct impact on your bottom line. Yeah. This has a very direct impact on how you keep your business going. This has a very direct impact on students engaging in their work, that they see themselves in their classroom, in their assignments, in their curriculum. They see themselves on the sports team. They see themselves being able to create. Really, my role is to facilitate the environment for students to come to me and say, Dr. Tam, we want a petition, and we brought this petition to you to do this. Okay, let's talk about it. The fact that they did that they showed up and said, we want to talk about this. And they might have done it scared, but their fear was overshadowed or overwritten by an atmosphere that says there's somebody
that cares for you.
Cares and will listen. And it wasn't that they came to me directly. Someone else told them, which meant that it was embedded on our campus that we actually do have mechanisms and processes around how to do this. Yeah. Here's where you start. Yeah. That's how you know it's embedded. Yeah. So it's about creating the environment. You can create the environment in whatever space you're in. Yeah. And I promise that you will see results when you do that. And people will take notice. And you don't have to say, it's DEI. You can say, you know what, we just did some creative, we just brought some creative ideas that people, that resonated with people, that resonated with our customers and clients.
And we've been doing that.
And
right?
we've always been doing that.
We've been the attorneys, the marketers, the PR directors, the HR,
the fixers,
the the Olivia
advisors,
Pogues, the crisis managers,
the consultants.
So we have the
We've been doing
ability
all of
to
that.
be as creative as we want
Yes.
with this without titles and words. I mean, that's really what's being kind of taken away. I mean,
Yes.
and not to say that systems haven't been
Right. Disrupted.
programs, programs haven't been taken away, and access to resources hasn't been taken away, because that definitely has. But it all starts with words.
Yeah.
And I think that the way you drew that out, language.
Language.
That's right. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have the language.
Yeah.
We just need to be a little bit more
And
nimble with it.
I would definitely that, and it's okay to shed old, sullied language. Language evolves.
Yeah, that's right.
So, but let us be in the front and not behind
Yeah.
the language. Let's create the language, which is why I love generations, right? These newfangled
These youngs.
generations will come up with all kinds of memes and names, and you just go, that actually fits. And in other instances, it was like, that's really, you're not doing anything different today. But the fact that they are
Constantly changing and evolving.
naming their reality.
Yeah. Yeah.
We can learn from that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Dr. Stevenson, thank you so much for just all because I'm in this work too.
Yes.
Not directly like you are and others, but I've seen it change, and I've
Yes.
seen also the impacts more recently that it's had on just people in general, and people that are doing the work and seeing how students are being impacted and families are being impacted, and so it's heavy.
Yes.
And your message to everyone is keep doing the work without all the words, without all the window framing around it. The work still continues.
Yes.
And that perhaps we need to come together.
Yes.
And plan.
Yeah.
Coordinate. Learn from
collaborate.
Collaborate. We can learn from what we saw.
Yes.
They gave us the blueprints.
They certainly have.
So we can do this.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a matter of us coming together on it. And I love what you said about not being so personal, but making it about the system at hand. That works anywhere, right?
And I don't want to deny humanity, though. I don't want to deny
Yeah.
our humanity, and you naming the heaviness. I think I've been in denial a little bit about that myself, and it's taken a toll. But having friends and colleagues like you to remind me to take care of myself, to breathe.
I know there was a time where I was just like, how are you? How are you feeling? And you're like, I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm just doing the work right now.
Yeah.
I don't have time for this.
Yeah.
How am I feeling right now?
You're asking me to, because if I
Yes.
stop,
Yeah.
I'm going to just collapse. So
Right.
the fact that you are such a powerful and heartfelt reminder to take care of self and to center the humanity in all of this, and the way that you've been able to shine and be a pivotal part in how we evolve is beyond needed. And I just admire what you've been doing. It's so needed. That's why I love how we yin and yang together.
Yeah, because you really, I may bring it to the hippy dippy stuff, but then you're like, okay, cool, cute. Cute. But we have some real systems and strategies we got to put in place. And so you and I coming together, it's such a beautiful thing. And I think that's the thing about our practitioners. We both just listed off a whole ways of how we are we're able to just do many things.
Yes.
And for us to be able to do that for each other is just it's pretty awesome. I don't have that with a lot of people.
I don't
so
either.
I really appreciate you.
I don't either. Likewise. It's all love. It's all
It's my favorite because you
admiration.
translate. I just remember we were in a client meeting and you were saying something like, what she means is, what she's trying to say is.
But then, so what's interesting too is, right, because there are different people in the room, and they may catch on to one thing you say, and they may catch on to something that I say, and so
we're saying the same thing.
We might be saying the same
it's
thing,
good.
but if whatever it takes to kind of to get them to where they need to be, or to get them in that space of relief and strength to be able to go on.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Thank
Your
you for
words are so
having me.
powerful. That little Tamara, the little Tamara that is inquisitive and curious and wants to ask questions, wants to know, is exactly who you are. I see
Yeah.
it. You're a light in our community. You shine bright, and you just keep doing that.
Thank you.